Hey, welcome to Terror at Collinwood. 'Tis I, Penny Dreadful, and I have some news for you before we get to today's show. The ballot for the Rondo Hatton Classic Horror Awards is up and can be seen at rondoaward.com. You can vote by emailing Taraco, T-A-R-A-C-O, at AOL.com by Friday, May 1st. I'm honored to say that Terror at Collinwood has once again been nominated for Best Podcast and Penny Dreadful for Favorite Horror Host. Thanks to the votes of so many kind people, Terror at Collinwood won for Best Podcast last year, and Penny Dreadful has won twice for Favorite Horror Host. I encourage you to vote for the other nominees on the ballot. Going through the list, I see so many of my friends nominated in multiple categories, and congratulations to all of them. I can't name everybody here that I know on this ballot, but I'll at least tell you which past Terror at Collinwood guests and Dark Shadows connected folks and things are nominated. So, making my way down the ballot in order here: Best Blu-ray Collection, Dan Curtis Classic Monsters. Best DVD Extras, Dan Curtis Collections, Jeff Thompson, Introductions to All the Telefilms. Amanda Reyes, Dan Curtis Late Night Mysteries. Best Short Film, Screening After Midnight, directed by Ansel H. Farage and starring Dark Shadows' own David Selby in a fanciful search for the lost London After Midnight. Book of the Year, Confessions of a Brian De Palma Protege, How I Shadowed the Director of The Fury, Dressed to Kill and More by Sam Irvin. A young filmmaker thrives in the shadow of a genius director, wild actors, and Hollywood crazies. Best Article, Vincent Price, Master of the Macabre by Rod Labby. Scary Monsters 237, no matter the role the actor came with a warm chill. Best Interview, Imagineering Makeup Founders Larry Cliff, Gino Acevedo, Barry Coper by Ray Castile's Basement of Horror. Best Cover, Little Shop of Horrors number 52 by Mark Maddox. Best Website, Ray Castile's Basement of Horror. A bit odd, since Ray Castile's Basement of Horror is not technically a website, it's more of a podcast, but so be it. Vote for Ray. And speaking of Best Podcast, in addition to Terror at Collinwood, the Diecast Movie Podcast, hosted by Steve Turek, has been nominated. Monster Kid Radio with Derek M. Cook. You can also write in other podcasts like Hallowed Groundling with Aaron Haas, who has been on Terror at Collinwood and will be on again. Classic Horrors Club podcast with Jeff Owens and Rich Chamberlain can also be written in. And then moving on to Favorite Horror Host, I'm not going to read them all, so I will say vote for any one of them, but the ones who have been on Terror at Collinwood and the Horror Host Tribute to Dark Shadows and are listed here are as follows: Bobby Gamonster, The Bone Jangler, Count Gore Duvall, Dr. Sarcophagi, Dr. Drek, Dr. Gangrene, Halloween Jack, Carlos Borloff, Marlena Midnight, and Sally the Zombie Cheerleader. Best Graphic Arts Presentation, Curse of Dark Shadows by Craig Hurd McKinney and Jock from Hermes Press. Graphic novel, A Deathbed Promise Brings Back Barnabas. And also The Art of George Wilson, who of course did the artwork for the covers of the Dark Shadows Gold Key comics, by Daniel Herman and Anthony Taylor from Hermes Press. More than 300 illustrations from famed pulp comic book and poster artist. There are also several write-in categories, including Monster Kid Hall of Fame, for which I encourage you to write in Barbara Steele, Mark DeWidziak, John Aston, Ansel Farage, Jeff Thompson, and Linda Wiley, aka Nurse Monique. Artist of the Year write-in, you can write in Mark Maddox there. Of course, Mark has been on the podcast, and he's going to be back on again at some point. And apologies if I skipped anyone. It was not intentional. In other news, Catherine Gonzalez has let me know about her upcoming Discount Artificial Sweetener album, The Abduction of Maggie Evans. Keep an eye on Catherine's YouTube channel to check it out, and check out her groovy podcast, The Back Room at the Blue Whale, as well. And I look forward to visiting with Catherine on her show next month. Continuing on, don't forget that the Dark Shadows 60th anniversary event is happening July 31st, August 1st, and August 2nd. And just added to the guest list per the Dark Shadows news page is Donna McKechnie, who of course played Amanda Harris in Dark Shadows. So you can go to the show notes, click on through, get your tickets to the Dark Shadows 60th anniversary event. But that's not all. There is also another Dark Shadows event happening on June 27th. Also, per the Dark Shadows news page, to celebrate 60 years of Dark Shadows, the UCLA Film and Television Archive in Los Angeles will screen 3 classic episodes on June 27th, followed by a panel discussion with actor David Selby, Quentin himself, and the show's historian and archivist Jim Pearson. Also, a selection of Dark Shadows rarities and highlights will be shown, in addition to the premiere episode presented with its original 1966 commercials. The new Dark Shadows Noir book will also debut at this event. The event is free to attend. There are no advance reservations. It will be general admission only, and for more information, click the link in the show notes. And in other exciting news, Terror at Collinwood guest Steve Shutt has shared with me a rare audio recording of Grayson Hall as the Fly in the stage musical play Happy End from 1977. Click to listen to it in the show notes. There's also an excerpt of Grayson Hall singing her big number, The Ballad of the Lily of Hell. Thank you, Steve, for sharing this very rare and wonderful recording. Folks, you definitely want to check this out. It's really cool and definitely a rare thing, and it was really great of Steve to allow me to share this with you. And last but not least, make sure you head on over to TeePublic and grab a Terror at Collinwood t-shirt. I hope to see some folks wearing Terror at Collinwood shirts at the Dark Shadows 60th anniversary event. I will see you there. I'm going to be moderating some panels. I'm going to be bouncing around. I'm going to be pretty busy there, but I am really looking forward to it, and I hope to bring my audio recorder and grab some interviews with people while I'm there, like I did at the Remembrance event. If I have time, I'm planning to bring that recorder with me, so hopefully I can get some interviews. And speaking of interviews, wait until you hear my interview with the amazing Patty Karapinar, who's written a book on Sy Tomashoff. Let's get to the show. Welcome to the strange and unsettling world of Terror at Collinwood. 'Tis I, your hostess, Penny Dreadful, and I am excited to be joined by my friend Patty Karapinar. Patty recently retired as Director of Sustainability and as Senior Architect with Architectural Nexus, a Sacramento and Salt Lake City-based architectural firm with an integrated practice reaching throughout the western United States. Patty holds a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Design from the University of California at Davis and a Master's of Architecture from the University of Oregon. Among many other things, she is a past chairperson of the Northern California Capital Branch of the U.S. Green Building Council and has been a speaker at many sustainability symposiums, including the prestigious Green Build International Conference and Exposition and the International Living Futures Institute Conference. She was the construction administrator and healthy materials expert for the first certified living building in California and the first living building in the world that was a renovation rather than new construction. Patty has contributed articles to Daytime Gothic and Daytime Gothic 2, as well as Our Shadowed Past 2 and 3. She dabbles in fan fiction, some of which can be found on her blog at pattykarapinar.blogspot.com. And today we'll be talking about Patty's upcoming book, Sy Tomashoff, Dark Shadows by Design, which, I might say, is going to be required reading for any Dark Shadows fan. Welcome to the show, Patty. I'm so glad to have you on.
Oh, thank you, Danielle. It's so nice to see your lovely face again after not having seen you since the Dark Shadows Remembrance.
Oh, gosh.
Terrific.
That was so much fun. It was so great seeing you there and chatting with you there. And I've often bragged about your wonderful Julia medallion that you've sent me in the mail so thoughtfully a couple of years back, which is so cool. And they should really license that from you and manufacture that for everyone to have one of those. I'm looking forward to seeing you again at the Dark Shadows 60th anniversary
Great.
event. So that's
Yes.
that's going to be a good time for sure. But and I want to talk about this Sy Tomashoff book because I've been fortunate enough to get a sneak peek thanks to you. And folks, I mean, this is going to be incredible. Your mind is going to be blown when you see this book. I've seen the PDF. It's beautiful. But before we talk about the Sy Tomashoff book, I don't think we ever really got into your Dark Shadows origin story, Patty. So
Oh.
can we talk just a little bit about that? Like, what was your introduction to Dark Shadows? How did you get into it?
Ah, well, my first introduction was when I was in grade school, and a couple of friends rushed me home to their house so I could see Dark Shadows. And I saw it for the first time and then wasn't able to see it after that because I had all these after school activities and such. And so I just never, got exposed to it as a kid. And then in 2020, lovely COVID, I was still working for full time, but at home. So I was one of the fortunate ones, or unfortunate, depending. I could keep working. And I just thought, well, what was it about this show that my friends were just so ecstatic about? And so I started watching it on Amazon Prime, and I just got instantly hooked. And then it went on and on from there.
Yeah, that's what it does. And COVID during the pandemic is the perfect time. I rewatched the show during the pandemic. I think it was the third time I had rewatched Dark Shadows, and it was just the world was falling apart. And I said I'm going to Collinsport because I'd rather deal with vampires and ghosts and werewolves than be where we are right now. So, and I think I'm going to be heading back there pretty soon because it's starting to feel like it might be time to go back to Collinsport pretty soon. But your background is in architecture, and I think it's so appropriate that you've written this book on Sy Tomashoff because he was such a brilliant set designer, and his background too was in architecture. And which I didn't know until I was reading your book. I mean, he is in many ways. I don't want to say the unsung hero of Dark Shadows because much like Robert Colbert with his music, Sy Tomashoff and his set design, his entire look for Dark Shadows, it was an integral part of Dark Shadows, the identity of Dark Shadows, the set for Collinwood, the set for the old house, the blue whale, the Collins Mausoleum, all of that. It was so tied into just the character of the show, the mood of the show. I was brilliant. He was there from start to finish. Eventually became the associate producer of the show as well toward the end. And I mean, those sets are so iconic, and it's so perfect that you've written this book. So, what inspired you to do this? It is surprising there hasn't been a book about him prior to this.
Yeah, I think so too. And he deserves one so much. Um, so I had a friend of mine who was given a roll of drawings by Sy Tomashoff that I guess the person had had in their closet for years.
Hmm.
And most of them, if not all of them, were originals, whether on tracing paper or with pencil or on, vellum or something a little more substantial. And the person showed them to me, and I thought, oh, these are incredible drawings. They're so architectural. And and I boy, somebody should write a book about this person. And then I thought, well, I've been meaning to write a book in my retirement, and I thought maybe it would be fiction, but I was so inspired by his drawings. I thought, well, why not me? Why don't I just do it? Um, and I'm basing the book quite a bit on that roll of original drawings that this person was nice enough to scan for me, and some pretty good scans. Some of them are a bit difficult to get really good resolution on because they're light pencil. And so I've done my best to really bring that out and, do the best graphics I can for the book. But then I also was able to to have given to me scans of other drawings that some other people had. And so it just kind of grew from there. Not only his dark shadows work, but some of his work, particularly after
Mm.
dark shadows as well. So I have some incredible, you know, scans of some old slides of some of his sets from his work afterwards, some of his drawings from his work afterwards. So it's I'm focusing on dark shadows, and I'm kind of bracketing it with just kind of a chapter of his career before that and then a chapter of his work after that. But it's very dark shadows centric.
Yes, like the bulk of it is certainly dark shadows,
Yeah.
and but the opening part of it talks about his early days in television, and he was really an important part of it's the golden age of television. There, he and in fact that's where he met Robert Costello. Per your book, I mean, the amount of research you did was just really quite astounding, and a lot of information in there that I didn't know about, and that they met at Armstrong Circle Theater, and his meeting Robert Costello eventually then led to him being on Dark Shadows. But his involvement in those early days of television and working on those shows, he helped develop a lot of those techniques, right, in those early TV shows.
Absolutely, he did in those early television shows and in Dark Shadows as well.
Hmm.
A lot of techniques that I'm understanding as I'm learning more about set design are still in use today.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The whole set design for Dark Shadows. I mean, first of all, they changed studios, but they went into the rectangular
Yes.
studio, which is not ideal for shooting a TV show, but he really made it work, and you have so many great images in there to illustrate how he did that and how, for example, the permanent set for Collinwood, which was established in one end of that studio, and then how he worked around that, and then eventually having the old house on the other end of the studio and having the other sets kind of placed along the wall. But it was a challenge to make that work, but he was able to kind of work with what he had.
Yeah, I was able to go in December down to the UCLA Special Collections, Dan Curtis Archives, which I believe Jim Pearson was instrumental in putting together and donating. And there are scripts, almost all of them. And along with the scripts in the same boxes are these set layouts. So the studio itself and how each set fit in the studio for different episodes. Not all of them, but boy, that really answered a lot of questions. I was looking at some of these sets, especially where like Barnabas was walking down this long corridor, or Maggie was going through the labyrinth trying to get away from him. Just those kind of scenes where it just looked like a lot of studio space had to be taken up to fit those sets in. And then to see the layout in the studio and how he accomplished that was just fascinating. And a lot of those are in my book.
Yeah, and just pulling a quote here from your book, and what people can expect to find in this book. It says, "We will look at Sy Tomashoff's entire career and make a detailed exploration of his work on Dark Shadows. We'll discuss some, but hardly all, examples of the sets themselves, the processes and challenges of designing them, and the techniques and materials that Tomashoff employed that made his sets so innovative." I mean, you really dove deep here. You got into, and being an architect yourself that gave you such a great insight into how these things work. Because I think if sort of a layperson wrote this book, they wouldn't understand as well in terms of the terminology and the materials, etc. You really went to town and explained, but you explained things very well so that because I'm not an architect, but I understood everything that you were talking about and the materials, and it was really fascinating. He's like, wow, he used this to do that, and to make this look this way, and to create that sort of heavy Gothic look. He used these materials and used this type of furniture because he also, it wasn't only the sets, it was set pieces as well that he also built or designed, or that he designed to be built for the show. But that was really fascinating as well. Like, what was the research process like to pull this together, and how did your own background as an architect help inform that?
Oh boy. So I've been on this for a year and a half so far, almost every day. And so that was back in the beginning, and it's a little fuzzy, but I think the thing that helped me the most, I have two people that I need to thank profusely among the many people that I need to thank, for helping me learn. And the first is Mary O'Leary. And she was able to get me in touch with people that I would never have known about. And potentially they would have just said, well, who the heck is this? But because Mary said, hey, this is what Patty's doing, it'd be great if you could talk to her. She opened so many doors to me. And I got to talk to the most amazing people that I had never dreamed of speaking to. And we're full of stories and knowledge and memories of working with Sy or working with his sets. And it was just the most fun thing in the world to interview these people. So that's where a lot of it came from. And a lot of it was research for books. And, Guy Haynes helped me with the festival recordings.
Oh, yes.
That where Sy had been on panels, and I had never been to these festivals. And so he gave me those recordings, which were wonderful. That was so helpful. The other person probably I need to thank more than almost anybody else is Jim Pearson, who's encouraged me, as Mary has, and has given me set still photographs and information, and it's come from a lot of different places that was one thing I was worried about when I started the book. I thought, am I going to have enough material? Am I going to be able to find enough about him so that I could really do something that was meaningful? And bit by bit, things, I dug things up, or people said, well, why don't you look at this? And I was like, oh, I didn't know that existed. Or, this YouTube video, or that article in that soap opera magazine, and so there actually is not a huge amount about him, but enough that I was able to put things together.
Yeah, you were able to source a lot of great stuff for this, like MPI interviews, Guy's festival interviews, which are invaluable. I mean, that's a great resource for sure. Marcy Robbins' interview with Sy as
Yes.
well. So, I mean, you had some really good material there as far as that goes. People that knew him as well, and people that Mary had put you in touch with. So that was fantastic. But the way you broke it down too was really cool. One thing I really liked was you talk about some of the actual buildings and locations that were used, like physical locations such as Seaview Terrace, the Spratt Mansion. You talk about, the Griswold Inn and stuff, some of those places. But then you also draw comparisons and things that may have inspired Sy in the building of, say, the Collinwood set, the foyer and the drawing room, and what, he had to make that work for the ABC studio, so it doesn't look, if you go into Seaview Terrace, it doesn't look exactly the same, but he did take elements of Seaview Terrace and work them into the set, like that wood paneling that we all,
Yes.
it's that's so recognizable, or the stained glass windows that are so, striking. Just little touches that you recognize that clearly were an inspiration that found their way into the show. And then you pull that into it, which I really like, and you show images to illustrate that and side by side, which I really like too. That helps to kind of paint that picture for the reader for sure.
Well, the other people that I just have to have a big thanks to, I was so fortunate that Liz and Ivy Tomashoff, Sy's daughters, as I talked to them probably over the past year, were so helpful and so open with me about their dad. And they had some drawings of his in storage that are
Oh,
also, some are also in the book that I would otherwise not have had. And I thought, oh, you've got this great drawing of the terrace, or a great, fantastic, working drawing for the old house, where I had a visual, but it wasn't that good. And then some of the work he did afterwards, photographs that he took of, some of the sets as they were being constructed in the ABC studio for later shows, are just really fun to see.
they are, especially
That
was it?
man had more fun, I swear.
You could tell. It was one of
You
them was
can tell, yeah.
container for man's head. I think it was for the Judah Zachary box. But he was yeah, one thing I really loved was you had a section too on terror and the influence of terror in the show and on his sets. And I didn't know he was a horror fan, but it makes sense. Horror movie fan. It totally tracks that he was, and that influence found its way into the set construction. I love that you talk about sort of the Gothic and sort of the symbolic elements of the Gothic archetypes finding their way into Dark Shadows, such as the heavy furniture and even the camera angles and things like that. It's exactly correct the way you laid that out, and I'm glad that you included that and that Sy was conscious of that in the choices that he made in designing the show as well.
Well, a wonderful guide for me for that chapter was your podcast.
Oh, shucks.
Dark Shadows is Wicked Gothic.
Yeah.
That was just, I love that podcast.
I had
So,
a lot of fun putting that one together. And thank you. Yeah, and I also noticed that you used some really great pictures. As you pointed out, you've got several from Jim Pearson, you said, to
yes.
help illustrate things, and Rob Saccone, who's the set pictures that his uncle took, which were really cool, and some I had never seen before that were in there too. Really, some really cool photos or rare ones that I had not seen or had not seen for a long time, and that really helped to kind of illustrate things as well. He went on, you mentioned bookending the Dark Shadow stuff. He then went on to Ryan's Hope, and then he won
Yes.
what, seven daytime Emmy Awards, I think it was. I think it was
He
seven.
did. Most of them were for Bold and the Beautiful,
Oh, Bold and Beautiful. Okay.
which was his last job that he worked on before he retired. And he was there for 13 years with Jack Forrestal, who was his assistant at the time. And
Mhm.
then when Sy retired, Jack became the main production designer. And he was kind enough to give me like an hour and a half of his time to talk to me about his relationship with Sy, his working and personal relationship with Sy, which was just fantastic information. Such a nice
Yeah.
man.
What are some of your favorite Dark Shadows sets that he created?
Oh boy. Um, I love them all.
Me too. I know it's
Uh,
hard to pick.
it is. Well, I think the mausoleum
Yeah.
and the basement, where the coffin is, the old house basement
Yes.
and the old house are probably my favorites. Everybody loves the drawing room and the foyer, and they are amazing.
Yeah.
But those have a particular spot in my heart.
They are especially spooky, so
Yes.
I love them as well. I love is a variation of the old house basement too, which when David has that nightmare, and it's
Yes.
such a like kind of almost like a wild German expressionist kind of a look to.
Psychedelic hot pink, and
Yeah,
black
yeah.
slashes across. Yeah, that's wild. That is a wild set.
That is just insane. Or hell, the netherworld with like what the imagination that went into building those sets was unlike anything else on not only daytime TV, but I would argue anything on TV at that time, and you talk about a bit about that in the book too. I mean, in terms of a lot of, particularly with regard to daytime TV, how it was lit, and you worked closely with Mel Handelsman, the lighting director on the show, to achieve a certain look, a certain depth. And you talk about the depth and the grains and getting certain colors to pop and interesting things that were done in order to achieve textures in the show. And I love the way you describe those things because they're just things that I think the average person wouldn't think of, but you, as an architect, as someone who has worked in that field, I think you have a great insight into that. It was the fact. Were you surprised to discover Sy's background in architecture, or were you like? I think you said in the book, like you said, this guy must have been an architect or something like that.
I was not surprised at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because didn't he started out? He was going into architecture. He was going to be an architect, right?
He was, yeah.
And then he
He
got,
did at least 2 or 3 years work in architecture
yeah, and
before
Carnegie
he
Mellon,
shifted.
right?
Carnegie Mellon, yeah,
Yeah,
right, Carnegie Tech, as it used to be called.
yeah.
He graduated from there with an architecture degree. And interestingly, he took a couple, I think, of set design classes while he was there,
Uh,
which was kind of prescient, right?
yes, right. But then he got sucked into the world of set design
The new world of television set design,
yes,
absolutely. It was just an emerging thing at the time. He was right there when it was first being developed. It was
yeah,
just fabulous. And
yeah.
he was one of the ones that developed it.
I always bring up like the idea of if there's going to be a new Dark Shadows, would you want to see and I think we talked about this before, and you were kind of on the fence about the idea of a new Dark Shadows. I don't remember, I might be wrong about this, but what about the sets? Would you want to see like recreations of the Sy Tomashoff sets, or would you want to see something inspired by them? Or
Ah, so it's not that I don't want to see another Dark Shadows. I
uh,
don't want to see another remake.
yes, okay, that's what it was. That's what it
Yeah,
was. Yeah.
I like I'm gonna lose his name. The gentleman that's developed the continuing Dark Shadows and is trying to get it to
Mark
become,
Perry.
yeah, Mark
Yeah.
Perry. I just love his concept.
Hmm.
I think I've got to see the Collinwood in the old house original sets. Just got to see them.
Yeah. Yes.
People got to go back there, and it's still got to be spooky. And I
Yeah.
have no problem with new sets and new locations. And maybe it might want to actually snow in Maine once in a
I would
while.
love that. Yes.
Right? Me too.
Yes.
Um, but something that retains the meticulousness um, and there's got to be some original sets in there,
Yeah.
recreations of original sets. There just has to be. Otherwise, it's not Collinwood. Otherwise,
I
it's not Dark Shadows.
Yeah, I think you got to have the foyer in the drawing room or so the wood you have to have the wood paneling,
Yeah.
and just that feel of with the chandelier overhead and the fireplace. I think and the secret panel in the wall, like
Secret
uh,
panel.
you got to have the secret panel. That's essential.
That was a good story there about the secret panel. It's in my book too.
Oh yes, yeah, talk about that. I love that story too.
Well, it was funny because it wasn't the secret panel wasn't developed as a response to a script requirement. They didn't say, okay, for this episode, we need a secret panel in the wall. It was like, I think it was Bob Costello that told Sy, oh yeah, when you do the drawing room set, put a secret panel in there because one of these days we might want one.
Yeah,
Okay,
which of course they would.
of course. How can a show be gothic without a secret panel in the wall?
Precisely, yes. The other thing too is the old house. Like they didn't know. the old house set was designed before they knew they were going to use Spratt Mansion as the exterior for the old house. And it's unfortunate that we don't have more interior photos of
Yeah.
the inside. We have a few of them from when Jonathan Frid went and did that photo shoot, but there aren't too many interior shots, sadly. But yeah, that was also designed prior to them choosing the Spratt Mansion, which was also an accident because Dan Curtis was a cigarette break while they were outside shooting
Out
what
in the
Matthew.
poison ivy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The 1995 storyline too. You cover that quite nicely too, with a lot of illustrations about how he changed the set to make that shocking series of events come to life, or death perhaps on screen through the destruction of Collinwood, and you with some great blueprints, illustrations that show that, and that was fantastic too. And that's one thing I really like that you did too, is showing, he used a lot of the same sets, of course, Collinwood and the Old House in particular, throughout the centuries or in parallel time bands, but he changed things to make it feel different because it's in a different time period or it's in a different band of time. So there were different colors that were used, different pieces of furniture, different ways of lighting. And one thing I really like that you go into is like 1840, for example, like the color scheme for 1840,
Oh,
like a lot of blues, right? And
blues and greens a
blues and
lot. Yeah.
greens, that's what it was, blues and greens, yeah. And then you show images and talk about that, and then you pull some quotes from him too there. And one thing I didn't know about was the sofa that was used in 1840, and that it was too light on camera. The material was too light, but he had to use fabric spray to make it look darker. And he said, if you look carefully, you can see some streaks in it, which I'll have to pay attention to that next time I watch 1840.
Yeah, I think he said that at maybe one of the festivals.
So
It
the
was
book,
it was interesting because at the time when he started in set design and through Dark Shadows, the professions weren't as distinct
mhm,
as they are now. They were just being developed. And so he wasn't just the set designer.
yeah,
He was the set decorator.
yeah,
He was except for the hand props, he was the prop guy. He went out and shopped everywhere he could think of for things. And so, my gosh, this man did it all. I
yeah.
don't know, boundless energy and enthusiasm is the way I think of him.
Yeah. I mean, there are
Yeah,
even designs for cobwebs when David gets caught in the cobweb
yeah,
for the dream curse and stuff. Like, I mean, all kinds of stuff that he was coming up with for sure. And yeah, and going, like you said, going out and buying furniture and buying pieces for the set so that it would
portraits. Yeah,
portraits, yeah, hanging the portraits behind you. One of the festival quotes you pulled where people asked what's behind the door at the top of the staircase, and he said, "Oh, that's where we hung the portraits when we weren't using the ones we weren't using. Were hanging behind the wall up there." Which I wish someone had taken a picture of that.
I know.
I would love to just see all the Collins family paintings hanging behind the wall there. That was great. And then another thing you pulled from like Flip magazine, where
Oh
did they
yeah.
store a lot of the props? And she just said they were just piled from the floor to the ceiling in the hallway, just all these antiques and stuff that they weren't using that day or that week. They just all tons of them just piled up.
They
And
had the smallest storage room. They could
uh,
not store,
no,
everything that they had to bring in and back
right.
out and back in again. They could not store there. They had to store it 90% of it probably off-site. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you talked about, how they'd bring in disassemble sets and
Yeah.
ship them out and bring them back and et cetera. And you included the famous story about the old house getting carted off to the dump,
Oh,
and they had to
yes.
rebuild the old house, which is insane. And I
So
wonder if
I'm
anyone,
hoping the book will be interesting to people that just enjoy set design too,
yeah, oh, sure.
but probably mostly, especially for Dark Shadows fans, because they can go back and look at episodes and go, oh yeah, I see what she's talking about right there. Or, oh, I noticed something that Patty didn't notice, right? Which would be really
Yeah.
fun.
I think it actually is a book that could be used at a school that teaches set design, like for film and television. I could see this being a required reading book for students there. It's really cool. And by the way, the title of the book too, Dark Shadows by Design. I love the title for the book.
Thank you. I have to give credit for credit is due. That was Patrick McRae's idea.
Oh, Patrick, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yep. That
He
sounds like
gave
a
me some
Patrick.
really good advice.
Yeah, that is a good call there, Patrick. So yeah, The Dark Shadows by Design, perfect title. So what was the biggest challenge in pulling this together? I mean, there's so much in here in terms of research, interviews with different people, photos, blueprints, illustrations. Like, what were some of the biggest challenges that you've quotes from cast members as well? What were some of the difficulties?
Well, one of the things before that I really wanted to do and did was to let Sy talk for himself,
Hmm.
you know, in a lot of things. And some of the people that he worked with, I quoted, pretty extensively because their voices were better than mine, in describing some things. So I thought writing it was going to be the hard part. This is so much more involved than I ever thought it was going to be. I'm laying it out myself. I had at one point a publisher, but they weren't able, which I would have loved to have worked with, but they were not able to do the horizontal 8.5 by or 11 by 8.5 format that I really needed.
Oh,
And so I'm going to end up self-publishing. So I
oh, I
haven't
see.
crossed that bridge quite yet. And then I needed to edit my own the photographs and the screenshots and the drawings. I needed to make sure that they were readable in print. And
Mhm.
that's probably my last task is to change the RGB to CMYK, format, color formatting from computer RGB from reading the color on the computer to the way that they have to have it for printing. I still have to do those conversions. And I didn't realize I was going to have to do that. And so now I have to buy yet another computer program so that I can do that and translate them in a way where I don't lose resolution and I don't lose color. So I think that's probably going to be the hard part because it's nothing I've ever done before.
I
So I'm
see.
doing lots of things I've never done before.
Yeah.
One of them is laying a whole book out in InDesign, which another program I needed to purchase. And I'd never used it before. So believe me, I am learning how to lay this out the hard way. It's like, oh, next time I write a book, I'll know how to do this. Right. And I think the main challenge is I have so many illustrations and so many drawings that if I just laid out a novel, I would have been done months ago. But, laying it out with everything in the right place where it flows while you read it and things the right size where they're not so many really large things that the book gets way too long, but not so many tiny things that people can't see what's going on. So it's just all those kind of judgment calls that I've needed to make along the way. And hopefully I've done a good job at. But laying it out has been really fun. But I think the transition of the photographs and the drawings from one color or black and white software or whatever it's called to another is hopefully not going to be terribly challenging. I don't want to lose anything. And my daughter's really good at that, so I've got the advice.
I was going to ask if you have
Behind me.
someone who can give you some insight
Yeah.
into that aspect of it. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. And you said you're going to be self publishing it. So do you have a kind of an expected release date on it and where people are going to be able to get it?
So my original goal is to have it ready for the Dark Shadows Festival or whatever
Oh,
you want to call it. Not sure I'm going to make that deadline, but I'm going to keep trying.
okay.
So it'll probably be at least another month before it's in shape to send it off for publishing. And then I have to get a proof, right, and check it and then change anything that's not right and then send it back again. And then that becomes the published version. So I'm not really sure how long that's going to take. It's probably going to take at least a couple of months.
Uh-huh.
So I'm hoping to make it,
Okay.
but remains to be seen.
So
But
if you
this year for sure.
this year it's for the
Yeah.
60th anniversary. Okay.
Yeah.
So so sometime at least for sure for the 60th anniversary for 2026, ideally for the 60th anniversary festival or event or convention or whatever it's called. So it's happening in July, beginning of August. Does that mean you would have a table there if you have the book out by then, or?
I'm hoping so that I'll have a
Okay.
table. Yeah.
So it's possible that people would be able to get it from you in person. You can sign it for them, etc., right at the table. That's awesome. So
That
good.
would be ideal. We'll see
Okay.
if it can happen.
Okay, good. So fingers crossed
Yes.
that we get that. Now, for those that cannot attend the event, or if it's not published by then and people want to order it online, are they going to be able to get it, like, say, on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com or places like that? Or is it like directly from you? Like how, because I know with Bob's book, Our Shadow Past, they would order directly from him, or for
Yeah.
Stuart, they'd order Daytime Gothic from him. Whereas although you can get Bob's book, the first one, a digital version of it from Amazon, but
Mhm.
some like Patrick's books, for example, you can buy on Amazon. The day books you can buy on Amazon. So if this one is going to be available in that way.
The plan is, yeah, I'm going to self-publish it through Ingram Spark.
Okay,
And so they do support all those platforms. So
okay,
hopefully it will be available on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Hopefully. Yeah.
okay, good,
Should be from what I'm reading of their distribution.
great,
And
great.
it'll be print on demand.
Oh, okay, fantastic, good. I'm sure that this is going to sell like hotcakes because I think it's like one of those things. I mean, we've had books about so many different aspects of dark shadows over the years, and this is surprisingly one that we have not had a book about. It's almost shocking, really, that there hasn't been a book about Sy Tomashoff up to this point, and particularly his work on dark shadows, given all the other things that have been released over the decades about dark shadows. But you've definitely scratched that itch here for sure with this because there's such an in-depth amount of research that you did on this, and you did a great service in honoring Sy Tomashoff here and
Oh,
also providing the fan community with something that was needed that we didn't have. We have not had this before, and it's so appropriate that it's happening for the 60th anniversary of Dark Shadows too. So thank you for doing this and putting so much work and time into this labor of love, to be
yes.
certain. Yeah, for sure, because you're not, nobody hired you to do this. You are doing this because you wanted to do it,
Yeah.
and I love that you did that. So that's wonderful. And it blows my mind that this is your first time using InDesign and because the layout looks great. I mean, it looks
Oh, thank
fantastic. It's
you.
just like the juxtaposition of the images with the text, and then you have some nice color images with black and white images and the blueprints. It just all looks really visually pleasing as well when
Oh,
you're going
thanks.
through it. Yeah. So, and then nice quotations that you have now. You also have a cast member potentially writing. I don't know if you want to talk about, if you can say it or not, because you don't
I
have it
don't
yet.
yet because it's not a completely done
Okay.
deal, although
Okay.
it's like this far away.
Okay. So,
Pretty sure it's going to happen, but yeah, there will be a forward to the
okay.
book by one of the Dark Shadows actors.
Okay. Okay. So we won't say who it is yet, just in case.
Yeah, just in case. Yeah.
Just in case. So that's really cool. That's really great. Is there anything else you want to say about the book or about Sy Tomashoff to close things out here?
Oh my goodness. Um, do you mind if I just say the names of some of the other people I was able to interview?
Oh, please do talk
Okay.
about those people and anything else you'd like to say.
Because it was just amazing. So I was able to talk to Dennis Size, who is with the lighting design group in New York City. He's the current lighting designer for the new set for Good Morning America.
Oh, cool.
Right? His first lighting design job was Ryan's Hope.
Okay.
And so he had the greatest stories about that. And he's the one who pulled out these slides of the sets that he took that he didn't even remember that he had, from back in the day, and scanned them for me. And I'm able to include those. And that was just a real kick. And his insights as a lighting designer were just wonderful. Then there's John Zach, who was a director on Capitol, the soap opera Capitol, and on The Bold and the Beautiful. Very, very close friend of Sy and his wife and his family. He was able to give me, so many insights about how he worked with Sy, and where he worked with Sy, which is in my book, which was really kind of amusing. But they found out they lived in the same apartment complex or condo complex, which was really funny. Anyway, that was great. And then Ken Crowell, who was a trucking guy for ABC, and he was one of the people that trekked the sets back and forth.
I thought it was really cool that you got to get him in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. And he retired as a vice president of ABC Television Production Services here not too long ago. Jim Storm gave me a wonderful interview.
Yes.
Which is terrific. I was able to email back and forth quite a bit with David Selby, which, thanks to him for being so generous. And then I was able to talk to a gentleman who I have never watched Bold and the Beautiful before I started working on this. But he's Eric Forrester, the main guy on The Bold and the Beautiful, the main actor. And actually, Jim Storm was on that show as well. So it was interesting to get Jim's impressions from Dark Shadows and from Bold and the Beautiful. But John McCook, who plays Eric Forrester, was so funny because I think Mary knew somebody who gave him my phone number and said, would you mind calling this person if you're interested in talking to her about Sy Tomashoff? That was in the evening. First thing in the morning, totally unprepared, I get this phone call, and it's John McCook. I cannot believe. First, he called me back to begin with, and he called me back within 12 hours of getting my phone number. It was like, this man's unbelievable. Who would do that, right? He's this big deal actor. Talk about a class act. He was just fabulous to talk to. Now, it was a lot of fun.
That's great.
And of course, Ivy and Liz, gave me a lot of their time and their digging through their dad's boxes.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing some, because the PDF that I've read has like placeholder spots for some of those things. So I really look forward to seeing some of those designs, because I'm sure nobody's seen those before. So that'll be really cool to see some of those pieces of art. How many pages total? I forget.
I'm not 1,000% certain, but it's going to be probably between 290 and 300 pages.
Okay.
So I was afraid it was going to be more than that, and was afraid of things that, I needed to cut out something that I didn't want to cut out, but I think it's going to be manageable. It'll be okay.
Great. This is wonderful. And I'm so excited for you, and I'm excited for everybody to get their hands on this when it's finally released. So it's going to be really cool. Now, is it going to be hardcover or softcover? Do you know?
I'm planning on softcover.
Okay, cool.
I don't know if it will also be available in hardcover or not. It kind of depends on the price point too. I want to make sure this is affordable.
Yeah.
I don't want to get it, out there to the point where people can't get it.
Yeah.
Which isn't completely up to me, but I want to make sure it's on, good, heavy, glossy paper, white paper, the best that it can be for reproducing these photographs and such.
A lot of stuff coming out this year, which is great. Let's keep the 60th anniversary party going with Shadows books and other merchandise that's coming out. So I'm very excited. Patty, thank you so much for taking the time today to sit down with me to talk about your upcoming Sy Tomashoff Dark Shadows by Design book. As soon as it's available, please let me know. I'll certainly announce it on the podcast, and I'll put up the order link so people can get it. And I hope to get one in person if it's available at the festival this summer. And I can't wait to see you there. So we're gonna have a good time this summer.
Can't wait to see you too, and everyone I've met so far, and maybe make some great new Dark Shadows friends too while we're at it, right?
Yay. Wonderful. Awesome. Very cool. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, which I'm sure you did with my wonderful guest, Patty Karapinar, please give the podcast a like on YouTube. Give us a subscription too. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it's really important that you rate the podcast. If you can, review the podcast too. That does help the podcast to reach more Dark Shadows fans of all things spooky. So please leave a review, and long live Sy Tomashoff. Terror at Collinwood is a Penny Dreadful production.